Terry Smith of Gaugemaster. Just to start off, Terry, could you tell us which brands you represent, and then just give us, I suppose, a bit of a state of the market, really, where we are, how things are.
Thank you. Gaugemaster have been importing fly slot since the mid-90s, since their inception. We also import card tricks, we import NSR, we import, we've got SRC, we also do the brands, the new brand, which is, I'll talk to you about in a minute, but there's another one of Raphael Barris's creation called Vulcan Slot. I'll come on to that in a minute. We've seen a massive decline in sales in the UK over the last 20 years. It's been almost incredible to think that when we were importing fly cars from the beginning, we were bringing in 800 to 1,000 units of each car. This has come down, without giving any secrets away, to probably less than 100 of each car, unless it is a release of something brand new, something which has not been done before. And then you've got to put your thinking cap on and think, well, how many of these are we going to sell in the UK? Who's going to buy them? If I could get it right every time, I'm not a rich man at all because I work for a company, it's not mine, but you know, we would all be richer if we knew what was going to sell and not going to sell. Just recently, I've made a couple of mistakes. Sideways, which is an offshoot of Racer, produced a couple of Porsches. I'm looking at the market, thinking how we're going to sell, and I get it wrong. Both of them have sold out, we can't get them anymore, and I'm feeling stupid because like I've got traders saying to me, right, well, we're restock on these, and the manufacturer hasn't got them. Because they are now getting to the stage where they don't want to sit on stock, sitting in warehouses, just like people like ourselves don't want to sit on stock. Because if you have to sit on stock for too long, you then have to clear it, and then it becomes a problem because people have already bought the stuff at the proper price and then a bit upset that you're now box shifting stuff. So you want to try and get it right, you want to try and get the balance of getting the numbers in the first place. But sometimes you don't get it right. Unfortunately, a couple of times recently I've got it wrong. Sideways is a great little brand that's done really well for itself since they went to the Group 5 cars. I know some people held the Daytona prototypes in quite high esteem. They were good cars for the money, slotted components throughout, by the way. But Daytona prototypes are a little bit uninteresting model. And when they started with the Group 5 stuff, they really took off. And there are clubs that are running these as a separate series. So they're doing okay. I think one of the things that I heard in the meeting earlier about why aren't certain manufacturers doing it, and I'll bring the subject up, Ninco and their digital stuff. It's no secret that Ninco are probably in a bit of a pickle. They were one of the first brands to really change slot cars as far as I was concerned back in the early 90s. I think we were all used to like the products from Margate and wherever, and I think Ninco really changed the whole ball game. And suddenly I think it's fair to say that as more clubs started back up again, people were racing Ninco cars. And it's sad to see the decline, but it's kind of a situation. It's not just here; it's globally. Spain had something like 75 specialist shops selling slot cars. They're down to about 5. There used to be 5 or 6 in Barcelona alone. I was there last month and I visited Palo, the shop at the top of the Ramblas. And it says Scalextrics above the door. It's that committed to slot cars. And I went down into the section at the back of the shop to find mainly old SCX stock, sort of second-hand track on the counter, and it's just not, you know, there were no new releases there, and I'm thinking, this is the top shop in Barcelona, you know. So the sales have declined drastically over the years, and the problem is that manufacturers then have to look at how much investment there is in new tooling and that sort of stuff. And it's kind of easy to think, oh well, yeah, why don't they just do this? But they've got to recruit their investment back. And I think with Ninco at the moment, they have focused on radio control. We are not really interested in that side of the business, I'm afraid. It's not out, but you know, if anybody knows Gaugemaster, we are primarily a model railway importer and distributor, but and I've worked there 15 years and it's become the slot car guy. Okay, so and I look after all the slot car accounts in the UK, and I also liaise with the manufacturers too. But I think the thing is that we've just got to a situation where people just aren't buying the cars anymore. You know, the hobby has kind of changed in their 20 odd years. So with Ninco, they have gone off on this radio control avenue, and they've said quite categorically, if they hadn't, they wouldn't be here. So we are now riding off the back of that, on waiting for the next releases to come. They are working on their new digital system. I know it's coming. We hopefully will get it in September, October time, which means these track pieces and things that have been sadly missing will be available.
Okay, thanks Terry. On a more positive note, the Brabham BT44, I believe you might have one in the box there, in the iconic Martini livery. I understand that this wasn't quite as easy as the general public might perceive as far as it being produced. Can you tell us a bit more about how it came about?
Yeah, gladly. I feel very proud about this because it's not often. I mean, I do speak to the manufacturers. I do air people's opinions on what, you know, people come to me and say, why doesn't this manufacturer make this? Why don't we do this? And when Fly came out with the March, which I thought at the time was a strange choice because it wasn't a particularly iconic car, but it actually turned out to be an inspired choice for them because of the amount of liveries they could get out of the car. And this is important for a manufacturer like Fly. If you're naming names, yes, if you're like the Skeletrixes and the Carreras, you can make quite high numbers of a certain car and sell it over a period of a year or two. The smaller manufacturers can't do that. They can't sit on the stock. So they've got to look at tooling which they can then bring out different liveries over the same period of time. So they make them in smaller, each car is made in smaller numbers. And I think they released, I think 19 or even 20 Marches in the end, where that's an amazing amount of cars. At the time I said to Raphael, why don't you look at other cars? And he said, well, I don't know. I said, what do you suggest? I said, what about the Brabham? I think it's a great car, Martini livery. This was 10 years ago. And I think I gave up the first time around with emails and photographs. And I then, when his son took over the company, when he left to start SRC, I then started talking to Raphael Jr. about the project. I sent him lots of photographs, livery suggestions, stuff like that, and nothing happened. So I decided to make my own because I was so frustrated. And I took an old Skeletrix Brabham shell and literally gutted it out and mounted it on a Fly chassis. I was going to get the decals made up from Pato in Australia, and about this time Fly got taken over by a new owner who invited us out to Madrid. So I took this prototype, if you like, this hash up in my hand luggage. And when we was at this meeting at this table with the new owner, with Raphael Jr., with their, you know, technical guys and everything, I said, well, by the way, I bought something you might just have a look at. And I've got it in here. Put that on the table. You should have seen their faces because it suddenly existed. It wasn't just an idea. And of course, being engineers and modelers and so forth, they're like, oh, looking at, oh yeah, we can do that. That's the. And I'm saying, yeah, that's what I've been telling you all along. And Then last year at the Toy Fair, I was told that they would be going ahead with my Brabham, which was really nice. The car was released only a couple of weeks ago, and that's the finished article, the Martini livery. Regarding the liveries of this car, I'll clear this one up because I've had somebody quite knowledgeable say, oh, so when are we going to bring the red one out then, Terry? I said, what red one? I said, well, the red one, because when Skeletrix did it, they did it in red. Yeah, that's right. In 75, they raced in that livery. In 76, they changed cars completely. It was an Alfa Romeo-based car, and it was the Brabham BT45. Of course, in the days, Skeletrix didn't mind about things like that. So the following year, they made it in red and still did it as a BT44. Hence why some people think that, oh yeah, they're going to do it in red. No, unfortunately, they won't do. But there are about 12 other liveries they can do. The car was raced in the 74. I hope you don't mind me talking about the real car, or do you want me to carry this on? Okay. In the 74 season, the car had virtually no sponsorship. Had Goodyear on the side of it, but that was about it. But in certain races, it did get sponsorship, such as Hitachi Car Radio, and also in that season, John Watson raced one, surprisingly, in a brown and orange livery, which was actually a 42 with 44 bodywork on, so it looked the same. In 75 season, they both ran as Martini cars, and then the cars were sold in 76 and appeared in lots of privateer liveries, which leads us on to this here, the NSCC car. I'm very proud and pleased that you've decided to do this. I believe it's your first Formula 1 car. Yeah, I expect that you might not meet with universal approval, I don't know. But we picked this car because it was a fairly relevant thing. Guide was, as you probably know, won a medal for bravery for helping Nicky Lauda out of a firing crash. This particular car was his only Formula 1 win, Alton Park World Cup in 76. And it's exactly the same car that John Watson drove in the 74 season. It is the 42 with the 44 bodywork on, but you can't tell them apart of the cars. We've also secured the fact that this will only be available to the makers. There will be no extra production made on this car, so it will be a unique car. I'll also be pleased to tell you that it will be arriving sooner rather than later. I gather that when you've commissioned cars before, there's been quite a big difference between what you've been told and when you're going to get it. The next production of a BT44, I believe is going to be the car's Parche car, the teammate to this one. The production, even though it's a different colour and different tamper painting, will be tagged onto that production. So we are probably talking months, certainly not next year or anything like that. We will be talking probably sometime in the 3rd quarter. So it will be coming quite quickly. One of the things that Fly actually did, I thought was very nice, was as a thank you for me actually helping to bring this car to market. They did actually send me the very first prototype, the very first plastic moulding, which I'm very pleased to say that I will keep forever. So it's nice that sometimes you can be involved with manufacturing and see something come to fruition from it.
Thanks, Terry. Beautiful car. What can we look forward to as far as new releases are concerned from Fly and SRC throughout the year?
Fly are, again, in a bit of a situation. We've got, the reason why this was easy to produce was they didn't just base it on parts of the Fly March. When I'm quite surprised when I turned it over, it is a Fly March chassis. The complete running gear is the same. Back in those days, wheelbases probably would have been very similar, within probably like a few millimetres. So the fact that the car is running on March running gear is not unusual. It's a DFE engine in the back, and in fact from that, of course, they're going to probably make lots of other Formula 1 cars using that chassis. But the problem is with the tooling again, to bring out cars like a whole new car costs something like 80,000 euros, and you've got to sell a lot of cars again to justify doing that. it's like the latest release from NSR has taken a long time to come through. It's the BMW Z4. And again, you know, we've had a few re-liveries, but we've been waiting for new products, and it's brilliant that that's coming out. Geraldine asked me my opinion on the P1 or the Corvette. I said Corvette because I think the Corvette's already, it's won at Daytona, it'll be at Le Mans next month. I'm just, you know, the P1 to me is, you know, I'd rather get a proper race machine that, you know, people can, and so I expect the Corvette to be with us by the end of the year. Ninko do have a new car this year. It is a Renault, the Renault Sport. There's also talk of a World Rally Car Fiesta that possibly will have a very lightweight body shell on it, so it'll be one aimed for racers. With sideways, we've got the Group 5 cars. The next new tooling will be a BMW 320 with the big fat arches and wings and everything like that. There's quite a lot of bits and pieces coming out this year. There is, but I think one of the things is like we used to expect loads and loads of releases, and now we're not. Even with all the brands that we represent, we're probably only talking new tooling, maybe only 6 or 7 cars this year from all these manufacturers, which just shows you the downturn in terms of overall production.
Okay, talking of new product, Nuremberg Toy Fair, I understand something fairly significant was launched there, but not many people know about it. Could you tell us a little bit about that, Terry?
Yeah, that sort of get my head too big. As I said earlier, we are railway importers, and one of the brands that we represent is Fleischmann, who are now owned by the Austrian company Roadco. Their CEO wrote to R&D saying, "What do you guys import slot cars? What do you know, who's your slot car guy? Can I contact him?" So the CEO of Fleischmann contacted me and said, "Can you tell us about slot car racing in the UK? What's going on with it? Where do you see it going? What innovative things could we perhaps look at?" I couldn't wait to reply. There's lots of ideas, lots of things we could do. So I sent him this email and never heard a reply. Not thank you, which is unusual for manufacturers. But then they visited us in November, and I said, I got called into the office, which I was quite surprised about. I completely forgot about the email. And the CEO, Wolf Rank, is in there, and he said, "I'd like to thank you for what you sent me about slot cars and everything." So I said, "That's okay, it's fine." He said, "Because in the end of January, we'll have a working prototype featuring quite a few bits and pieces in." I said, "Hang on a minute." This was like, how could you do something like that so quickly? So basically, we dropped all the other things we're working on. It wasn't in the main hall where all the slot cars and other models are. It was actually the railway hall, which is probably why a lot of people didn't see it. And it was on the Fleischmann and Roco stand. And what I was greeted with was no holds barred. It was a Carrera track, and there was a little thank you for Carrera for supplying the track on this, because they showed Carrera on the eve of the show and said, what do you think about this? And Carrera said, "Well, what we've just seen is you're 2 years ahead of the game. We don't mind, but just put a little Carrera badge up on the side of it." So what they basically have done is that a few of the things that I said is listen, digital is obviously the way forward. Trying to get more involvement with the digital, with apps and things like that. I mean, people keep talking about it, but I've not seen, apart from timing and stuff like that, I've not really seen much. I said sound, I said they tried bravely. Again, I was involved in a bit of that, but they didn't have the money to back it up. I said sound's very important. He said, "What about in-car cameras?" I said, bit of a gimmick, but not sure. So anyway, we left it at that. What we were confronted with was 2 tablets, no throttles, a DTM car, and a classic Fleischmann. Probably most of you do know this, that Fleischmann did make slot cars back in the 60s and 70s. A classic out of their collection, 911. Overcars have been heavily modified, mind you, and they had cameras fitted in them. And on the actual tab was an interior of the real car. And you might think that this is where's this going, but I'll tell you where it's going. Because the involvement between the tablet and the racing is actually closer than what you would think. It really is. You've got the inside of the car, you've got the steering wheel, you've got everything inside the car, you've also got the throttle. So you move the throttle, and bear in mind, nobody come and told us how to operate this, we just picked them up and started playing with them. And you move this throttle and the car shut off, oh, you back off and it stopped. So you start doing it, and of course you've noticed they've incorporated sound, so there's sound going around, which is great. Then you get this voice saying, pull into the pits now, you need to change tyres. So you then hit the pit lane button, the car goes in. Don't forget, you're controlling the speed, this is not doing it automatically, you hit the button. The car came into the pits, you're then confronted on your screen with a wheel gun, a tyre, and you, again, nobody showed you what to do, but we'll drag it over, see what it does. You drag the wheel gun over, it undoes the wheel nut, you pull it back, you pull the tyre off, you push the other wheel on, you put the wheel gun on, and you get involved with it. I'm serious, I'm like, I mean, you know kids are going to love it, but for me, the age I am, I couldn't believe it, I just got involved with it. It felt like you was really changing the wheel and tyre on the car. You then, the guy says in that kind of typical mid-England motorsport kind of accent that they have, you know, remember to hit your pit lane, left turn, all that. So I didn't bother. So I've gone around a couple of laps, they call me in. I have to go in for a pit lane violation because that's it. And I just thought, wow, this is involvement. This is using tablets, using apps to add another dimension to slot cars. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute club racers would accept it, anything like that, right? It's not going to replace things, but it's an add-on which I'm sure youngsters and older people alike are going to enjoy if this thing comes to market. The big stumbling block is the investment that, again, this company's done. They've had if you like, almost overnight enthusiasm to get something to show people, but they haven't got the vehicle to manufacture it as such because they don't do slot cars anymore. Whether they'll go into collaboration yet with Carrera, I don't know. Obviously, being two German companies, they may well do. But it was very interesting to see this new development, and I've got to say, I was more than impressed on how far they come in a very, very short time with it. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, watch this space. That does sound really interesting. Earlier on, you mentioned Vulcan slot. And I kind of I'd heard a rumour that there was a new company called Vulcan Slot coming to market, so went on their website, but it's all in Spanish. So I'm still no wiser. Again, could you perhaps just tell us who they are and what we can expect from them?
I think the name Barrios seems to have almost dominated slot cars in Spain for the last 20 years. This is, yes, Rafael's third attempt of a company, although his last two haven't been too bad. He's got the backing of Alex Rhodes' son. Alex was a quite successful racing driver through the 70s and a personal friend of Rafael. And Rafael's got these great ideas of what he wants to do and everything, and he was pleased that he got this backing. He wants to. He's always coming up with innovative things, and what he showed us at Nuremberg was, and again he asked my opinion, and it's my fault perhaps that Snell got it on there, because some people are moaning about the price. But he's got working lights, nothing unusual there. He's got working brake lights, which obviously when you back off, nothing unusual there. He's got working dashboard lights. And when you see them, they look absolutely amazing. You know, you look into this 30-second scale dashboard, and the rev counter and the speedo and everything's all down. He was also talking about the navigator in the rally car to have his notes lit up too, so there'd be a beam of light shining on them. He said, "Would you offer that as standard or an option?" I said, "Well, the trouble is with that is how's the stockist going to know how's it going to go? I mean, you could offer one without the lights, and then everyone said, no, I want one with the lights. How are we as an importer going to know how many we're going to sell?" They did it with Fly many years ago, and you never got it right. There'd always be people saying, I don't want it with the lights because it costs more. So I said to him, look, how much is it going to cost? He said, about €2 to €3. Come on, do it, you've got to do it. The problem is it's all very well when we're talking at a trade fair about €2 to €3, but that actually probably equates at the end of the day, by the time it's got to the end user, to be about £10. So the car's coming out next month, and the first releases are a BMW 3-litre CSL and a Mark 1 Escort. Now we know Mark 1 Escort's been done before, but it's only been done in one particular body style. The car raced and rallied in different configurations, different kinds of arches. The most dramatic was the Zaxby one, which was in its last incarnation was sponsored by Castrol. I don't think people remember that car, but it looked really super. And so he's doing both arches. He's doing, there was the Alpina and the Schnitzer BMW, again, different arches, he's doing that. The prices of the cars, retail RFP, will be $54.95. So it's my fault they're probably that price, because like I said, go for the lights. I think he's got something innovative there. I think though that some people would question it, because if it's a collector, he's not going to see the lights, and if it's a racer, you might not want the lights. So it's a bit of a gimmick, which you kind of, you know, but he's got lots of other ideas too, and he's always been coming up with them. So I hope this new venture of his will allow him to perhaps bring some more innovative things to the market. Not just cars, he's got some other ideas which at the moment I can't even scratch the surface with. But him being back in the market, hopefully we'll see the fruits of that.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks for your time, Terry, and giving us an insight into the world of an importer. Any questions from the floor?
Sure.
Just Terry, obviously, I said it's slightly related, really, but are you going to do your Slot Fest this year?
Yeah.
Is it around that same time of year?
Yeah, it's something we've been doing at Gaugemaster. It's normally in the half-term period. We get, on the weekend, we get guest tracks turn up. We've had the round of the Skeleton World Championship. We probably will do it again this year. And it's a chance for people to come and see and talk to us about slot, because we are a train shop. And if we tried slot in the shop, but people just come in and it's, although I've got to tell you a story, I've got a guy called Gordon, right? And when I was retail manager downstairs, he'd come in on a Saturday and he'd be like this. Right? He would not look at the train stuff. To him, he was walking the slot car shop, even though it's probably one of the biggest model railway stores in the country. And he would come in and he would go, yeah, call that right, haven't they? Yeah. And then you'd have somebody at the door would go, oh, have you got the new Class 27 from Bachmann? And he'd go, railway nothing. He's in a railway shop, but he wasn't. For him, he was in a slot car shop. So, how did I get onto that story? Oh, about yeah, thank you, Jerry. About the shop, yeah. So for one weekend, in fact, it's usually a single day event, to be fair, but we turn it into a slot car shop, and we usually have offers and bargains, returns. You know, it's a way of getting, you know, some of the stuff we sell. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, you wouldn't just be able to buy a motor for what we're selling it in the packet for. So, worth coming down if you've not been before. Thanks for asking that, Jeremy.
That's all right.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a bit about the market there. I'm quite fascinated by some of the things you were saying. We all kind of know them. But, and linking that to the Fleischmann point that you were trying to make, obviously you were preaching to people that are probably not interested at all in what you were describing, but you were clearly quite caught by it. Sorry if I'm stereotyping.
What I would say with that, sorry, it's rude, but what I would say is I thought the same, and it's not until you try it.
Yeah. I want to make a point that in here we've got 20 people, and out there there's kind of hundreds of kids, and we're all kind of down our little avenue of the slot hobby, which is, you know, the one you've described, And then you're talking about this Fleischmann thing, and I really believe that the future of our hobby, our part of the hobby, really depends on those kind of things, because it does absolutely depend on the kids getting involved with those kind of things that are going to stimulate them. So I just want to make the point, I'm absolutely behind you and whoever getting involved in those things that might not actually specifically interest us, but they're absolutely fundamental to take the hobby forward, because otherwise we're all just going to absolutely disappear.
Well, I'm glad you said that. The only thing I would say though is that we all call it Scalextrics because nobody else knows what slot car racing is. And I've said for years, you might have a wonderful club in your town and not even know it's there. It's an underground hobby as far as I'm concerned. You've got the consumer side of it, your likes of Scalextrics, Carrera, or some degree Nico. But you've also always had the hobbyists, you've always had the clubs, you've always had the people that make stuff, you've always had the people that restore, and I think there will always be certain brands that will be around regardless of what the general thing is, because, and I'll tell you something which kind of, this will shock you. We've got 2 reps who nationally travel the country, yeah? And whenever, I've given up now talking to them about slot cars. Bear in mind slot cars is about 10% of our overall business, so it's a lot of turnover for slot cars. And when anything interesting when it comes out, if the reps are around, I'll go, and this is true, it goes like this. Yeah guys, look at that, it's great, isn't it? But do you know what I get? Little Johnny won't buy that. That's it, you know, their mindset is that that is actually a toy. That is a toy that goes on a toy track, and when you say it's $49.95, no one's going to buy that. It's like you've got a difference of what you're saying. It's quite right, you know, in some degrees, yeah, all these people coming in, it is for the kids. But let's be honest, look, we're all big kids that haven't grown up because we still love this. And I think there will always be the market and room for smaller specialist manufacturers. But we're never going to see the numbers produced like I think we saw 20 years ago. And I kid you not, when Fly was at its peak, we were getting boxes and boxes and boxes, and we were shifting boxes and boxes. There were dealers that we dealt with that would buy 2, maybe 3 times the amount of cars we actually import now, totally, you know, by one model. They might have bought 180 of them, you know. Where have these people gone? Because one minute we were all selling, you know, everybody was buying them, and I think anyone here that actually deals and sells themselves knows what I'm saying. You know, it has dropped drastically. But yeah, I mean, anything that does is always a positive thing. So